they're not. But most of the day they've been, I'll call them unvision corrected most of the day, especially my left one. I can barely see anything out of that eye right now.
I'm on day 2 of my daily contacts.
Oh, like you're wearing the same pair 2 days in a row?
Yep.
And who makes them? Which brand is it? AcuView, or is it a good brand or a crap even brand? Because I think I could go a couple of days with these. These are, by accident, a better brand. But the ones I had, the ones I had last year were fine, but they would dry out quick.
I mean, if I have like replenishing drops, and I haven't had an issue.
Yeah, it's like tomorrow's gonna get this major eye infection. I'll take naps in mine. I've never accidentally like slept the whole night, you know.
I purposely slept the whole night in them.
Oh.
And then watched them wore them the next day, Saturday to Sunday. My contacts are in the mail. They won't get here until Thursday, so I'm a little bit cramped.
I got you here. Okay. So, what we are going to do here is we are going to put a listener on our list view. So we have 2 list views in our code here, right? We have a list view for our loyalty programs. We have a list view for our credit cards. Here's my credit card list view right here. And we set adapters for these guys to give them, information, put stuff in them. But if I say this dot credit card list view dot set clickable, I think it is. Set clickable to true. So I'm saying I want this dude to be clickable. All right. Then I'm going to say this dot credit card LV dot what's it, set on click. Set on click listener. And this guy is going to be a new array. What is it? Give me a moment. This is a new on click listener. I think it's called an array adapter, blah, blah, blah. On item click listener. And we are overriding on item click. All right. What does it need to be an on click listener? Set clickable, not set on clickable. on nothing selected.
What shortcut key are you pressing?
For what?
That override and the...
Well, that when I just see the thing on there, it tells me adapter view cannot be. One second. All right, it doesn't like this type either. So let me see what this guy says he takes. Set on click listener. So this is an on click. Oh, I bet you it's an on item click listener. New on item. New on item click listener. Okay, there we go. I think this is. Oh, what are the two values here? Let me just run this real quick and see what these values are before I explain what this is. All right, so this is on my credit card one. So if I click on that, I should get some stuff printed out here. I want to know what that I and the L are. Okay. Click there, that's 0, 0, click there, that's 1, 1, click there, it's 2. So they both give me the same value? Well, this works, but I want to know why it works that way. It seems really stupid. Give me a second. I'm gonna look this up. See what it's telling me the difference between those two are. Unless it's for very, very long list views where an int is no longer long enough, I guess. Tell me what those. So the position is the I. And what's the ID? The row ID of the item that was clicked. So this is the position of the view in the adapter. This is the row ID of the item that was clicked. They just happen to be the same in ours. So we want this one called position. I really don't like the naming convention here. So I'm going to call this guy position. And we're going to call this guy row ID. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is, I think we still have our display, don't we? Core dot the credit card linked list dot get at index position dot display. Yep. So when we click on one of these rows, I will go ahead and grab the credit card from that position and tell it to display itself. Just proving that I'm getting the right guys here. So notice this is following a pretty similar pattern to what we had with our on value event listener for Firebase, right? We said, here's this guy, we want to listen for an event on this guy. Now I'm saying, here's this list view, I want to listen for click events on this list view. So whenever, so I said, this is my credit card list view, I said this guy is now clickable. And then I said, I want to listen for item click events on him. So now when I click here, notice that credit card prints out, that top one. If I click on this bottom one, that credit card prints out. So it's grabbing me the credit card that is the credit card I clicked on. Because when I click here, the listener is seeing that I asked for position 0. If I click here, it's seeing I want position 1. If I click here, it sees I want position 2. And it's going ahead and asking my credit card linked list to get me the credit card that lives at that position. And then I'm just displaying it right now. But what we want to have this do is take us to a screen that fills in all this data and allows us to maybe manipulate it. Okay? All right. Who?
So we do the same thing for the loyalty program?
Well, we will, but I'm going to do it on this side first so I can show you the update stuff. All right, so we want this to go to a screen now. So when we click this, we want it to take us to a screen where we can edit that information. So my screen, so I'm going to, for right now, I'm just going to do this. Credit card selected card is equal to this dude. All right, so that's the card I selected. Now I'm ultimately going to want to launch a new activity that will let me edit that guy and do things. So either change his value or possibly delete him if I wanted to, okay? Okay, so we're gonna go in here. I'm gonna add a new activity. This guy is going to be an empty activity. And we're going to call this guy edit. I'm doing credit cards, right? Credit card activity. So edit credit card activity. I'll let it go ahead and create a layout for me. We'll hit finish. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to steal a starting point for my layout from the credit card thing I already have. So I have in here my layouts. Here's my add credit card page. So this guy already has a lot of the stuff I want, right? So I'm going to go into the text here. And I'm going to steal a lot of that. Actually, I'll just grab the linear layout stuff from the middle. So I'll just copy that text. And then I'll go into my edit credit card information. I'll go into the text. I'll just throw that stuff here in the center. So now I have that as a starting point. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change my submit button to maybe say update, something like that, because that's really what I'm doing is I'm updating the data. All right, I'm also going to give myself a second button though, because I want a delete button, so I can actually get rid of something. That makes sense? So I'll put in a horizontal linear layout in here. I'll dump this button in there, and then I'll throw another button in there, and we'll have this guy say delete, and we're going to have the height of that guy set to wrap content, so it'll look like that. And this button has a width of wrap content, and it has a height of wrap content, and there's our delete. So we have update and delete. This guy will be set to, they're both wrap content, so just leave it. It looks ugly, but we could play around with balance and make these guys work differently. But we want to have this update button call a function that takes all the values that are currently in here and updates that guy's information to those values. That makes sense? We can do some error checking and things like that. This will get fixed once I fix my on-click thing. All right, so we're going to go in this edit credit card activity. I'm going to go into my add guy real quick, and well, I'll put my view in here. So we'll have a public void on update button press. This guy takes a view v as a parameter. All right, and then we want to have him go ahead and grab those fields that are in there. So we will go ahead and I will go into my credit card add activity, add credit card activity, this guy. So here is him getting those, actually he grabs them up here. So here's my pieces of information. All right, and then I'll grab them inside of onCreate. So here's me just querying for those pieces of information because we're pretty much using the same form, right? All right, and then on update button pressed, I'm going to grab all that current information. All right, so now I have that current information, but now I'm not creating a new credit card. Instead, I'm updating the credit card that got me to this page. That make sense? Okay, so I need to have a way of, so I'm going to have some credit card available to me here. I need to have a way of getting that credit card from the previous screen to this screen. I have two options. How do I share stuff between screens in an Android application? Okay, I can use my singleton, right? Or what's my alternative way? It's probably possible, but we're not going to do it. Not the database. What's another way? I think we did it when we first introduced. I showed two different ways. What was the way we shared information between two screens before I showed you the singleton? Then we look at put extras for an intent. Are you sure? Are you lying? I don't trust anything anyway.
I don't believe we did.
All right, okay. Well, I'll show it to you now. What's the problem with throwing everything inside of a singleton? Yeah, singleton gets messy. And in this case, I really just need this guy to have access to whatever credit card I selected on the previous screen, right? So just so I don't forget, let me go to the update button and make sure it's set to this guy. So that's this guy right here.
Singleton would only have the linked list. What would be yeah, the singleton would only have the linked list, so you'd have to like pull it out of the link.
Well, I would have to then have the position.
Yeah, you'd have to.
And one way or another, I have to get information over to this guy. I can either tell him what position I'm grabbing it from, or I can tell him here's the credit card I want you to update.
Just saying it's not like there's a single. Yeah, you have to do work if you're getting it out of the singleton. You have to know what position.
So I could throw up in the singleton the current selected credit card. I could do that. It wouldn't be the end of the world, right? But it's going to start being kind of messy in the singleton. And at this point, the only guy I think I'm going to use, that I'm going to need that selected credit card for, is this one screen. So let's look at the alternative way of doing this.
Unless you're like, you have another activity to delete a credit card, things like that. Because then like,
Well, I have a delete button on this one.
Oh, you do?
Didn't I? Did I put a delete one in here?
Oh, never mind.
Oh, not in this one, but there.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're not right. I mean, you're not wrong. You have to consider whether do I need this in more than one place or do I just need it in one place. For right now, we'll assume we only need it in one place. So I'm going to go ahead and get this screen launching. So we're going to do that inside of our main activity in our on item click listener. And this guy is going to ask the question. We're going to say, well, I'm not going to ask a question. I'm going to launch that new screen, right? So I'm going to say I want an intent called I, and this is going to be a new intent from this context. I think that should be, this should have been there. Oh, whatever. And then we are going to edit creditcard.class. What is this guy? Oh, actually, this is an excellent example. I'm glad we ran into this. Obviously, I did it on purpose. All right, this is actually really good and something that stumbles a lot of people up in Android stuff, and it'll actually be really funny to see if Maddie actually watches the video. Notice he doesn't like me using this in here. What's the this keyword? What does that guy do? So this is how an object refers to itself from within itself, right? If I hover over this guy here, it says, cannot resolve the constructor of intent that takes in an on-item click listener, as well as the name of a class. I intend for this to be my instance of main activity, but it's not. Because right now, my context that I'm in is inside of this new adapter on item listener. So inside of here, this keyword is actually the instance of on item click listener that I'm currently building. In order to give this guy a context to launch something, I need to give him an instance of the context that I actually mean, which is main activity, because that's the activity I'm launching my new activity from.
Because you're inside the on item click.
Well, intent needs a context.
Okay.
So if I look at all the other places, so here's my intent down here, here's my context, I'm launching this guy from here. I'm launching this guy from here. So the first parameter for an intent says, give me the context from which you are launching this new activity. And that context has to be, in our world right now, another activity. Inside of this code right here, this is not another activity. This is an instance of on item click listener.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
I need to get the activity that is main activity. So the question is how do I get to the instance of main activity in here if this has been what's called shadowed? So I have a more local definition of a variable called this. Super is the parent of this guy, which would be whoever on item click listener extends. This is a pretty interesting problem solving thing. The solution is actually pretty easy, but it makes you think. Punchline here is that all variables resolve to their most local definition. Correct? Now let me come up here and just see what I have here. So I have a list view here called credit card LV, right? I have this global guy here. If I'm down here, where's my listener here? If I say credit card LV, I have access to that guy in here. Even though I'm inside of an instance of on item click listener, I'm building an inline class. And this is a variable name. Variables resolve to their most local definition. Is there a definition of credit card LV here? Is there a definition of credit card LV here? No. Is there a definition of credit card LV? I guess no, we're at this level. On create, no. The next level up is here. The most local definition of credit card LV happens to be the one I was trying to access. But in here, I need a context. And my most local definition of this is not the one associated with main activity. That one's being shadowed by my instance of on item click listener. So how can I gain access to my instance of main activity inside of this instance of on item click listener?
Is there like override?
Get context method for credit card LV?
You know what? There actually might be. There is. I don't know if that'll be set correctly. We're not going to try that because I think my gut feeling is that will work.
Okay.
So we're going to give you a star for the day. But we're gonna take a more surefire way.
It's hard to force myself to cry, so this is good.
Yeah. Any other ideas?
You're having to override what's getting shadowed, correct?
That's already gotten overridden.
Okay.
So if you're you're thinking about going down the path. How do I unoverride it?
Yeah, like just
Bad path.
You can't do that.
Damage is done. You've shadowed this keyword. So this is done. I need to now have an alternative way of accessing my instance of app or of main activity. So what I can do here is I can say private main activity. Maybe we call this guy my context. And then inside of on create, I can say this dot my context is equal to this. So now my context, that variable, is a synonym for this. This is a variable whose value is the same as whatever this is right now. So down in here, instead of saying this, I can say my context. The most local definition of my context. Do we have a variable in here named that? Nope. Do we have a variable in here named that? Nope. We're going to keep looking. We keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. We finally find our most local definition of my context is the guy I defined up here at the top level, and his value happens to be the value of this, specifically the this that I'm interested in.
So essentially, you're just creating a variable of saying this.
I'm creating a variable whose value is this at the time that I had access to that value, and it just happens to be a unique variable name inside here because this got shadowed. I can't say this in here. So I can't say this dot my context. That doesn't work because this is an instance of on item click listener.
It just has to be unique, something that would call it.
So I'm saying I went ahead and gave myself a little hack variable. I created a variable that had a unique name here that I knew I wouldn't find locally here. I wouldn't find it until I was up at the level where I gave it the value I needed. And the value I needed was the value of this instance of main activity, which I stored inside of my context. That makes sense how I'm hacking it?
Yep.
All right, and then I want to launch this credit card activity class thing.
I'm getting an error on I saying it's already defined in the scope.
Where? I don't have any I.
For
I changed the position.
intent I equals new.
Oh, well, you might have another variable in wherever you're at. Oh, actually, you probably left this as I. I changed mine to position.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it.
So, or just name this a different name. Name it elephant or something. Just whatever you want to name your intent. Okay, so now I have my intent, and now I can say my context, because I'm going to use this instance, start activity I. And that will get me to that next screen as a starting point, okay? Now this is just gonna get me to the next screen. I still haven't stored my instance of credit card yet. So I'll click on one of these credit cards. It'll take me to that screen. Okay? But I don't have access to my credit card yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the other way to get the information, my credit card that I read in here, to this screen. I'm going to think of the intent as kind of like a suitcase. All right? So I'm going to say I.set extras, actually, let's put extra. Put extra, and we're going to name this guy selected credit card. So I'm kind of giving it a variable name, and the value is selected card. So I'm opening up my intent like it's a suitcase. I'm throwing the selected credit card in there. I'm labeling it as selected credit card. Slamming the suitcase shut. We get to, then I'm going to launch my activity. We come over here to this guy, and just to prove that we received it, here inside of on create, I'll just go ahead and say credit card selected card is equal to this dot, is it get intent? Get intent dot get extra, and it's called get object extra, I think. Might be serializable extra. I think that's, yeah, it's actually, it's important that it was serializable because it wouldn't have been able to send it, yeah. So get serializable extra, and the name of this guy, I'm just going to copy it to make sure I don't spell it incorrectly, was selected credit card. All right, and this guy is going to come out as a serializable, and I'm going to go ahead and typecast him to credit card because I happen to know he's actually a credit card. All right, so I'm saying I'm going to open up my suitcase here, and I finally arrived at my destination. You got your bags off of the airplane conveyor belt thingy. Okay, you pop it open, you say, where's my selected credit card? It's going to come out as this generic serializable object that I then just turned into a credit card, because that's what he actually is. He's a credit card. And I'll store him here, and we'll prove that we got it by, I'll just say selected card.display. I'll tell that card to display itself. So once we get to the second screen, we'll prove to ourselves that we actually are here and can display ourselves. So let me run this again. Put up logcat here. Let me clean out logcat real quick. All right, so I'll click on this first card. I wonder if it does not like, I wonder if I have to do a put serializable to get it over there. Main activity. Well, it's not showing me the whole thing out of these guys because we're looking for this.
Oh, I see. This is where polymorphism gets confusing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I gave it a serializable value. That should have been okay. thinking that Firebase's limitations for serializable might not quite be what it needs to be for the put extra. So, for the sake of time, we'll
put extra carried as?
it'll allow you to put an int. It'll allow you to, well, we can actually cheat with the int. We can, so here, I'll use the put extra to do this. Actually, I don't even want to do it that way. Put extras allows you to have all these different kinds of guys. So I can store an int directly, a byte, a char, a long, a float, an int array, a short, a bundle value, which like is a pointer back to like various parts in your file hierarchy, a byte array, a char array, a double, a long, a string, a boolean, a float array, a short array. So pretty much all of our primitive types, right? Or arrays of our primitive types. But the only way we can store a object is if it fits the model for serializable, and I'm guessing that put extra serializable limitation probably is not compatible with the serializable thing we've done to store in Firebase. So it's a little bit inconvenient. We could probably get it working, but that might break Firebase. Break our...
If you were to set it over as a string array, because what's the selected card being, what is it right now? Is it an object?
Yeah, it's an object. It's an actual credit card object.
So there's not 4 separate pieces within that object.
Well, it is. I mean, we can do some crazy stuff to get it, but we have a singleton.
Okay.
So if this would have been simple, we would have just done it this way. But we'll just throw it in the singleton and move on with life. So I'll come into my singleton. I'll just create a public static credit card current selected card, and I'll start this guy off as a null value. That way we don't get warnings that say it might not have been initialized. So I'm giving it an initial value of nothing. So then inside of main activity, I'll say core dot current selected card is equal to selected card. Then inside of my edit screen here, core dot current selected card dot display, and that'll show the information for that card. So it makes it pretty easy to get it over there, which is kind of why singletons are nice, but you also want to be careful not to abuse a singleton. But in this case, it turned out to be better for us. So I'll select one of these guys, and there it is over there. Okay, so now what I can do is I can go ahead and I can actually populate my edit text here with the current information, right? So rather than displaying it here, we go ahead and grab these couple of things, and I'll say this dot credit card name et dot set text is equal to core dot current selected card dot get name. This dot credit card bonus points et dot set text is core dot current selected card dot get point bonus. Now that guy is an int, so if I want to turn him, I can actually do it on the end, but I almost always say empty string concatenated with the int. That will give me the integer value, or the string value of that integer. But what's important, what I was getting at there, is I could have actually done this. I could put the int first and then concatenate onto the end of it the empty string. And that'll work too. Ultimately, that'll produce the string version of that guy, because this plus sign here is treated as the string concatenation operator if at least one side of it is a string. So I have a string on one side, I have an int on the other side, so this guy is the concatenation operator. It'll glue this int and this empty string together, giving me the string containing that int. This dot min spend dot set text This is core dot current selected card dot min spend, also an int. Concatenate that with the empty string. This dot credit card, so start date dot set text is core dot current selected card dot, well, I have a get start date, but we actually just have a start date in here as well as a string. The get start date we had left over from when this guy was filled up with a bunch of private fields, because we don't actually need getters now because everything's public. So getters give you access to private members of a class. So I have a variable, or I have a method called get start date that gives me access to a public field called start date that I can just grab anyways. So now I filled in my 4 edit texts. So if I run this again, when I click on something, I go to that second screen, it'll have that stuff already filled in for me.
So for the other two, the name and the point bonus, you don't need the get version?
Yeah, you actually don't need, if for credit cards, all of these get things, we can actually dump. We had them there from before because when we originally wrote this, we had all these guys as private variables. So since if these guys are private, we can't access them outside of this class. So we had to give ourselves getters for those guys. So I can dump this guy, I can dump this guy, and this guy. Because those are 4 functions that give me access to things that are already freely accessible.
Go back to the screen you were just on.
This guy?
Yeah. So like it says core dot current selected card get point bonus. Does it need to be the get?
Yeah, well now I deleted it, right? So now I can come in here and say name.
Okay.
And I could come in here and say point bonus.
It doesn't have to be concatenated or
Same thing as before. I mean, this guy gives me an int just like the get point bonus gave me an int. This guy gives me a string just like the get name gave me a string. I just had those functions there before because name used to not be accessible like this. When I had name, if I come back in here to credit card and I change name to be private, he's no longer happy over here. I can't access name because it's private now. But then what does that do? That breaks Firebase because I need him to be public in order to be serializable for him to be written to Firebase.
got it.
All right.
If we keep the getters written like with the dot get, is that okay, or should we change?
It's not going to break anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just more of a it's a redundancy that you don't need to use.
Okay.
Can you go back to main?
Mm-mm.
Right
Nope.
underneath the intent new intent. What did you write? You did a core dot current selected card.
Where are you talking about here?
Just equals selected card. Alright, thank you.
All right. So this guy is now populated with the crap for that that particular card. I mean, we might label this for some stuff, but it doesn't really matter for this case. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a little function here, public void on delete button pressed. Okay, this guy's going to allow us to delete something from the database. So I'm going to go into credit card. And I have the ability for a credit card to save itself. I'm also going to have the ability for a credit card to delete itself. And this is going to be this dot ref dot, what is it?
And we're actually deleting it from the local version of the app, or is it from?
No, I'm deleting it from the database.
Okay, I feel we would have to, right?
Remove value. I think that should just do it. Keep it simple like this for now. So this will actually delete that guy from the database.
Does it keep the?
Still in my linked list.
Yeah.
So,
As soon as your database Because
Excellent point. Excellent point. You're on fire today, Shotty. I mean, you look stupid. Like he's waiting for like the butt. It's no butt.
That's it. You look stupid.
No, that's perfect. That's really, I mean, that's, you understand it. That's good. So when I remove it from the database will change, right? So I probably, though, want to come into, where is this guy here? So we'll go ahead and say core dot current selected card dot delete. So we'll tell him to delete himself, and then we'll say this dot finish. And that should take us back to the first screen, which should auto update now because we are deleting it from the database. All right, so if I come here to this guy, I go to my delete button, and I go to his on click. Here's my on delete button pressed. One second. We probably have a couple of, when I deleted all those things, there's probably some places where this is inside of get view. Okay, so this is just name, start date, min spend, point bonus. So that'll fix those.
Getter is almost like a suitcase.
Well, it was necessary before.
Right.
But now that we,
It access the private field, so it's like,
yep.
okay.
And then same thing here.
I'm not on fire, so will setters allow me to update a private field?
Well, what?
Setters allow me to update a private field?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But if the field's public, you wouldn't need a setter to do
No, I
it.
understand.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out why make a field private if you can just get at it with a getter and a setter.
Because you might have this, you might want to put like an if statement or something in a setter. Like maybe you don't want
Oh,
them
so
to
there's
set somebody's
conditional logic.
age to less than 0 or something like that.
So you can sanitize the data.
Yep. And maybe with a getter, maybe you, maybe it's just a number and you want to like have it put a $ sign in front of it or something like that. Maybe it's actually a dollar
So you can
amount.
do some sort of data transformation.
Yep.
Sure. Okay, thanks. That's that. I was actually sitting there thinking, I was like, isn't this redundant?
All right, so we got a start date, we got our min spend, and we get our points bonus. Okay, now he should be happy. And so I have a really poorly written credit card down here, so we'll click on this guy, we'll hit delete. He deleted himself, he's updated here, he's gone, right? So we, and in our database, obviously, since this guy's a mimic of our database, we see that he is gone in there as well. Now, we're not being too safe here since we just basically, like, are you sure you want to delete this? Yeah. Gone. Maybe next time we'll throw in a little question, but for right now, just, you know, keep it relatively simple. All right, so let me go ahead and commit this. And then let's talk about the homework assignment. So updated for
So this is
delete and sort of update.
So this is the international office right here. So you could drop your pin probably right here or right here, either one. Yeah, right here is fine. I mean, you'll have to be staring out the window a little ways. It's a couple
Okay, so
Just where back you go. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
is this portal broken?
That's Blackboard, man. It's junk. It's a whole other department. However, the single sign-on that Ani works with works flawlessly. We're very proud of that. So,
That was my single sign-on. Oh, no, I do the alternative sign-on. The single sign-on thing is a waste because half the time the portal is down. I can't get into the single sign-on, then it can't get me into Blackboard, so it's funny.
I blame Active
All right, so program number 6. What we are going to do, this is for everybody not Ani. Update your code to allow deletion and updating of credit cards and loyalty programs. Submit GitHub link and self-assessment. All right, so the idea here is that back in this screen here, if I were to click on this guy and I were to change some of this information and then I hit update, it should overwrite the database with the new stuff that's here. You don't have to do any error checking or anything like that. Just, it should update it, but that gets us a way to manipulate our data in the database. So I've already given you the delete code. Pretty simple, right? And I have previously tonight shown you the save code, right? So your save code is what you'll do here, and then you'll do the same hookup over on the other side. Sound good? Not too bad? All right. So, Annie, how much do you know about time travel?
No, I was already preparing my 12-page paper, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, so.
And watching Facebook? All right. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, bribes. All right. I will see everybody next